It is essential to remain anonymous. Remember, anonymous is no one. Individuality is incompatible with anonymous. Rely on the whole.
When the communists took over a country, one of the first things that they did was to confiscate all the privately held weapons. But even more insidious than the theft of the people's weapons was the theft of their history. Official communist historians rewrote history to fit the current party line of the moment. In many countries, revered national heroes were ordered excised from the history books, or their real deeds were distorted to fit communist propaganda, and communist killers and criminals were converted into official saints. Holidays were declared in honor of the beasts who murdered countless nations. Did you know that much the same process has occurred right here in America? On today's program, I will present to you the truth about the so-called Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
My name was put forward because I wanted to protect my friends and family from the association. People say to me, well, you should come out with everything. If you're going to talk about any of this stuff, then you're going to be prepared to deal with all of this and that you've set up for yourself. I had an email that said that to me, criticizing me for not releasing my last name. And I thought to myself, you know what they're actually saying? Anyone who actually says that is actually saying that Martin Luther King deserved to die for making themselves known. And just to throw it in there are plenty of people throughout history that have gone by their first and middle name, excluding their last name from their general communication walks in their society, just like people often use their middle name and their last name.
Well, let's take a look at this modern-day plastic god, Martin Luther King. Born in 1929, he was the son of a black preacher known at the time only as Daddy King. Daddy King named his son Michael. One day, years later, in 1935, Daddy King had an inspiration to name himself after the Protestant reformer Martin Luther. He declared to his congregation that henceforth they were to refer to him as Martin Luther King, and to his son as Martin Luther King Jr. None of this name changing was ever legalized in court. Daddy King's son's real name is to this day Michael King.
When you talk to Jacques about the Venus Project, you hear two phrases quite a bit. The first, I have no credentials. He says that because he dropped out of school at 14. The second, all our problems are caused by BS, bad science.
The way we think and the way we run our country is old and inefficient. Technology is racing forward, but not the mental state.
Jacques has been inventing and designing since he was a teenager. He drew this rounded car when all cars were shaped like boxes. You designed this 65 years ago? Why did it take this long for cars to start?
Because I can't get to anybody. I have no credentials.
That might be why he can't get everyone to listen, or it might be his blunt, outspoken style.
We're so self-centered, so stupid. The environmentalists don't want to cut down the forest, but they live in wooden houses.
But to do it Jacques' way, there would be no communism, no capitalism, everyone living together in one world, sharing everything. It's idealistic.
You know, people, before I show this lesson, people, just so you know that a lot of this is wondrous to you, and it is to me, of course, but Dr. Fresco is a respected social engineer, industrial designer and inventor, PhD in human factors engineering, and has worked on many things from anti-icing systems to prefabricated aluminum houses, designed systems for noiseless and pollution-free aircraft, wrote the book Looking Forward. He has lectured at the Department of Sociology in Princeton on Sociology of the Future, guest at the College Editors Environmental Conference in Washington, lectured at Queens College, New York, University of South Florida, University of California, designed various items ranging from drafting instruments to X-ray units. And so, you know, don't just dismiss this. If he says it's possible, it's possible.
Peter Joseph has created quite a stir, not just in the United States, but all over the world, with the release of his first film, Zeitgeist, and then he followed that with Zeitgeist Addendum. He's the founder of the Zeitgeist Movement, which seeks to install a global resource-based economy and remove the monetary paradigm current social model. And I think we all know exactly why. Dr. Peter Joseph, thank you for joining us. We are honored. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, David. It's good to be back. It's good to hear your voice, and I'm happy to be on. So,
Dr. Joseph, Brent Johnson here.
In the Journal of American History, June 1991, page 87, David J. Garrow, a leftist academic who is sympathetic to King and his movement, says that King's wife, Coretta Scott King, who also served as his secretary, was an accomplice in King's repeated cheating. Reading Garrow's article, one is led to the inescapable conclusion that King cheated because he had chosen for himself a political role in which the title doctor would be useful, and lacking the intellectual ability to obtain this title fairly, went after it by any means necessary. On pages 89 and 90, Garrow states, quote, "He was by no means fully at home with the dense and often abstruse theological texts he was assigned to master. It is no exaggeration to say that in his coursework at Boston University, Martin Luther King Jr. was going through the motions. He was in those Boston years, first and foremost, a dandy. The young Coretta Scott, on first exposure to her future husband, was most struck by his penchant for intellectual jive. King wanted a PhD in order to credential himself as someone far more learned," close quote. Why then, one might ask, did the professors at Crozer Theological Seminary and Boston University grant him passing grades and a PhD? Garrow states on page 89, quote, "King's academic compositions, especially at Boston University, were almost without exception little more than summary descriptions and comparisons of others' writings. Nonetheless, the papers almost always received desirable letter grades, strongly suggesting that King's professors did not expect more," close quote.
Five, reject the political system. The illusion of democracy is an insult to our intelligence. In a monetary system, there is no such thing as a true democracy, and there never was. We have two political parties owned by the same set of corporate lobbyists. They are placed in their positions by the corporations, with popularity artificially projected by their media. In a system of inherent corruption, the change of personnel every couple of years has very little relevance. Instead of pretending that the political game has any true meaning, focus your energy on how to transcend this failed system. And 6, join the movement. Go to the zeitgeistmovement.com and help us create the largest mass movement for social change the world has ever seen. We must mobilize and educate everyone about the inherent corruption of our current and 6, and 6, and 6, and 6, and 6, and 6, and 6. Join the movement.
Retarded, 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 retarded. Again, this is just retarded, 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 retarded. Again, this is just retarded. It's like they never ever talked to a competent economist before making this film. And the problem with this kind of stuff, for me, is that I don't know much about much detail about the history of Christian mythology, but when they do start making egregious and ridiculous errors, the makers of this movie, when they do start making these egregious errors about areas that I do have some expertise in, it throws the whole rest of it into question, of course, and that's a problem. So, retarded, retarded, retarded. Again, this is just retarded.
The editors of the Martin Luther King Jr. papers state that, quote, "The failure of King's teachers to notice his pattern of textual appropriation is somewhat remarkable," close quote. But in Holiday for a Cheater, Michael Hoffman tells us that, quote, "Actually, the malfeasance of the professors is not at all remarkable. King was politically correct. He was black, and he had ambitions. The leftist professors were happy to award a doctorate to such a candidate, no matter how much fraud was involved. Nor is it any wonder that it has taken 40 years for the truth about King's record of nearly constant intellectual piracy to be made public. Close quote. Supposed scholars who in reality shared King's vision of a racially mixed and Marxist America purposely covered up his cheating for decades. The cover-up still continues. From the New York Times of 10/11/91, page 15, we learn that on October 10th, 1991, a committee of researchers at Boston University admitted that, quote, there is no question but that Dr. King plagiarized in the dissertation. However, despite its finding, the committee said that no thought should be given to the revocation of Dr. King's doctoral degree, an action the panel said would serve no purpose. Close quote. No purpose indeed.